Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that bridges wisdom from generation to generation. And I'm your host, Coach Furtado. Today's guest is Natalie Gutierrez. Natalie is a program manager at PeacePlayers, a coach at PeacePlayers, a coach with the Los Angeles Clippers, high school basketball coach, and college basketball coach. So, in our conversation today, we talk about the importance for coaches, leaders, and youth development professionals to create intentional spaces, how to do it. Also, the power and impact of sport on society and the role we are playing as coaches, and the importance of equity in sport, female empowerment, and getting everyone to have an opportunity to play the game. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, Natalie, Coach Nat. I am thrilled to have you on the Bridging Impact Podcast. Welcome, welcome. I have no idea what we are going to be talking about today, but I do know this. It's going to be a very insightful conversation. For those of you listening, I'll let Coach Nat take it away. So first, though, what is your definition of impactful leadership, and how does it show up in your daily work?
Yeah, impactful leadership. So to be a leader is to influence someone, right? But for me, to be an impactful leader, you need to be intentional about the way that you're moving.
Yeah.
You need to be mindful of the effects of your behaviors. And you need to be able to understand that, eyes are always on you, whether you believe it or not. Someone's always watching. And for me, being an impactful leader, you have to just really represent your highest self. So that's kind of how I move daily. I tell people that I'm an overthinker. So I think it's my Virgo. It's the Virgo in me. So thankfully, the Virgo in me allows me to be very perceptive. And I feel like I'm perceptive to everything around me. And that helps me with how I kind of move forward and how I present myself. So I am obviously like this person all the time, but I'm also very mindful and aware of the spaces I'm in and how I need to kind of move for myself to be most impactful positively.
Yeah, no, I love that. So yeah, moving with being mindful, being and intentionality, right? There's always got to be a purpose to what you're doing and how you're doing it. I'm curious, talking about a little bit of how the journey of how you develop that. Like, do you just come out of the womb being mindful, or is that something you've developed over time?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think about that too. I reflect on myself because I'm like, how did I, obviously I'm a very humble person, but I'm also like, I do feel like, again, I'm very perceptive and I love my mind. I love the way I think. So I'm always thinking like, how did I get here? Like, kudos to my mom. I'm like, okay, mom, like you did a great job. Like, kudos to our parents. I know to a certain age, our parents really like affect the majority of our personality. And then obviously school and our surroundings do. And, other mentors play a huge part in that.
Right.
So that's how I feel like my development has gone. But obviously we all experience different traumas growing up. My dad passed away when I was in kindergarten. So my mom was a widow. I visualized her pain growing up. My brother around that time was going to college, so he had left. So it was just me and my mom growing up together basically after the loss of my dad. And obviously I was very young, so I wasn't really understanding what was going on. But, as I've developed, my relationship with my mom was great. But then also my mom is very religious. So, I'm queer. So that has been a struggle within itself. So I feel like I've had various struggles in different areas, but I don't allow it to really negatively affect me. I mean, obviously I'm I still need to go to therapy. I'm obviously I have to go to therapy, do all this and that. But I, again, with my experiences and how I'm able to kind of put myself in my mom's shoes, or I'm able to put myself in my brother's shoes. I want to understand other people's perspectives so that, I'm not hurting anyone's feelings. I'm not stepping on any toes. I just feel again, it's just being authentic and being intentional with what you're saying and what you're feeling and what you're thinking, because that really affects yourself and your energy. Right. So I think I've just been my experiences have been very interesting thus far, and they've just kind of helped me be, again, a very mindful person.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable, and with myself, of course, and those that are listening. And so with that, I believe that, there's probably a lot of strength and power that kind of comes from that kind of pain. And I don't necessarily want this to move in towards like a therapy session and just opening up. But with that, like you really so for those that are listening, Natalie and I worked together this past spring, winter at the Boys and Girls Club, coaching youth basketball. And so for those that are listening, like coaching that is very intentional and moves very intentional. And with the kids, like you're kind of bringing your experience and your energy. And this podcast is kind of about bridging impact and bridging impact to that next generation. I know that's something that's important to you.
Definitely. Yeah. It definitely is important to me to be able to positively impact the next generation. And I feel, I've been put on this earth to be of service to others. And I don't find any fulfillment or any passion in any other space outside of
I feel you
sports.
on that.
Like I growing up, like, or not even growing up, but just like I'm 25. So let's say 6 years ago, right. Working corner bakery or working like part-time jobs, I can care less about. I would call off in a second. If you gave me a call and was like, Nat, let's go to Disneyland, I'd say, let's do it, dude. I'll call off.
Yeah. Right.
Capitalism has no grip on me. Like, but then fast forward, like I've always been a coach. If you were to call me on a day that I had games or a tournament, on a day that I had a really like a practice that was important, like I can't call out. I can't leave my kids. Like that's where I have more of a connection. And the same thing goes. That's why I found myself following my passion and following where I'm super intentional again and super just like a space that I want to be in. Like I need to everywhere that I show up, I need to make sure that I want to be there, because if there's any slight negativity in my mind or anything where I'm just like, oh, bro, like why am I here? This is a waste of time. Then you're not getting the full Nat. So for me, I just want to be like the best version of myself, and the best version of myself means I need to put myself in the spaces that, fulfill me. And that's any space where there's kids, any space where there's an opportunity to make someone smile, any space where there's an opportunity for, me to use basketball, me to show others or show kids how basketball can impact your life, not only on the court, but off the court. Like everything that I am has been because of basketball. I've played since 9 years old. Basketball is like something that my mom and I share, and she played basketball as a youngin back in Mexico. And now like I use that. I think I played basketball possibly to hold on to that connection with her, and whatever, it's kind of progressed into much more. And now I'm like getting close with Nike. Now I'm working for PeacePlayers, an amazing nonprofit organization. Now I'm a college coach, a high school coach, doing this. Like I'm just, I don't know. I texted Steph, right? I was like, I don't know how I got here. I don't know how I got so lucky to be in this position, but it's also, when I tell myself that, I don't like hearing it. Like, no, we're you too. Like we're very intentional with the things we do. Like we're not just like going through life casually strolling everything. And it comes back to setting goals, and it comes back to being just a driven person. So I feel I'm a very driven person, and whenever I reach a goal or anything, I'm always like, okay, what's next? Like where there's never a ceiling. So with that kind of motivation or with that mindset and determination that I have, I kind of want to just push that onto every kid or anyone that I meet, and just hopefully have that positive impact.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's kind of amazing what a circle can do for us, like obviously for the kids, but also, for and giving you an opportunity to live life and with purpose, right? Because you talk about it, we have to unfortunately make a living, right? And so isn't it amazing that we can get paid to play sports and coach youth? And I want to talk about a little bit of the impact that sports has had on you, maybe growing up, that influence, obviously, kind of like the foundation. You briefly mentioned it about maybe potentially that connection with your mom and back to Mexico and to kind of your roots, right? And I think there's something that's so wholesome about sports that it's just so transferable, and you can go and play in Mexico or somewhere in Europe or in Africa or in Asia, right? Like it's all basketball, and like having that common good to unite a group of people.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, directly myself, like you said, I mentioned my mom. My mom had direct impact on why I chose basketball instead of soccer or softball or anything. I was a tomboy. I loved any sports, but I gravitated more towards basketball, and I assumed for that reason. So that was obviously like the hook. But I always surrounded myself with boys growing up, and every nutrition and lunch, I was at the playground shooting hoops, or I was playing kickball or anything. Like all my girlfriends would be having lunch, chilling, chit-chatting. And I'm like, yo, this is our time to play, like move around. So I've always been a very active girl and like just a very energetic person. Right. So that was another factor that kind of pushed me towards basketball and just competition. And then continuing on, like I played basketball first at a rec, and I was fortunate to have a couple very like trustworthy and great men, great dads coaching our team. So they had a super positive influence on me in the sense that they were very nurturing and believed in me. So yes, like I didn't have that female representation as a coach growing up, but I still had positive like male role models. And I was very fortunate to have, throughout my career, like I had positive male role models. I was actually talking to this with someone before, but I never had a female coach until I was in junior college. And when thinking about that, I was like, oh my God, like I played a lot. I played in a lot of different teams. And it's crazy to think that that female representation wasn't there. So I think even now, like that's another point. You want to be who you didn't have. Right. So for me being a female, for me being a Latina, for me being queer, like there's so many spaces to tap in and so many, like the intersectionality of it all. Like I can interact, I can see you for who you are. I just love being able to, and again, it brings me back to like PeacePlayers, like our core values, inside out transformation, seeing people as people, a culture of collaboration. Like I live my life through that, and I've been able to see how all those core values connect and have like connected me even before I was able to label them like that, like 10 years ago. Right. So yeah.
No, I love that. And that's honestly where I want to go next, is talking about, you're big on, female empowerment and women's sports. And I believe like it's so important. Like I even try and like reflect. There's no secret. Anyone watching this on YouTube, or now you can watch it on Spotify now too. I'm a white dude, right? Obviously. And everyone looks like me, and maybe because I feel like more empowered because I've always seen people empower that look like myself. And I think it's really important for, females and Latinas and, people that are queer to see their, someone that they can relate to in a position of power and in coaching and leadership that they can look up to and be like, I can aspire to do that. So can you talk about the importance of that and kind of the generational shift that you see?
Yeah, the importance in representation is huge. And I recently wasn't really reflective or aware of my impact or how, like, who I represent until like last year, Nike spotlighted me for their Latino Heritage Month. And I was someone who like they wanted to project out there and kind of embody the like cultures and themes of, Latinos and really focus on family. So that made me think like, okay, what am I doing for the Latino community? What am I doing for women? What am I doing for, the queer community, the LGBTQ plus, right? So I'm just like, there's so many, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming when you understand how important representation matters, especially when you're viewing yourself. And then when you take a step back and see how you're literally just like a little piece of sand or a little piece of salt amongst like, I don't know, like the beach, right? So it's overwhelming to say the least, but representation is so important because like I said, when I was growing up, I didn't have a female coach. If I had female coaches, I wonder if I would have turned out a little bit different. I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't regret my upbringing. I don't regret the lack of representation. Like, I don't know how I turned out, but I did. And now it's kind of my thing is, if I turned out like this without female representation, imagine how other girls are going to turn out with more female representation, with people that are able to have conversations that matter. So for me, that's why I think I'm as driven or as ambitious as I am now, because I see my potential and I see the impact and the importance of reaching like Latina youth and being able to, be a Spanish speaker or do things in Spanish and kind of, being LA, and the United States of America or whatever, and have like family in Mexico, Colombia. Like I just kind of want to be able to, again, bridge that impact and be able to bridge everyone together based on, and again, just the key word was the intersectionality of it all. But I think you had a second part to your question, so maybe you want to repeat that one for me, and then I'll go on that.
Yeah, it's just like, where's the shift that you see? You're talking about the intersectionality, and I do believe, progress is a lot slower than it should be, but I believe that, sports should be more inclusive, right? And my follow-up question is, how do we, continue to include people who are often maybe forgotten in sports, especially, kind of basketball is my mind, but it could be other sports as well.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, we work for PeacePlayers, right? We work for a great organization that's rooted in the community, and it's rooted in just genuine and authentic like love and peace, in our search for equity. So the key thing is, and one thing with you, I can give you a direct answer, like Nike and Play Equity Fund have partnered and funded about 13 organizations in both Boyle Heights and Watts to continue to push an initiative of increasing girls' participation in sports. So they like big names, like big brands, like organizations like that coming into the community with genuine like care and an authentic mission and purpose. That's how we move closer. And having people like myself in organizations, having a coach like you in an organization, like that's how we're able to really impact on a ground level, right? Or on a local level. And thankfully, with PeacePlayers, again, that's literally what we do. We're right on the ground. We're making sure that we are meeting up a certain quota with our girls' participations, like being specific and making sure that we're not like, oh yeah, it's okay, like we can bump up numbers. Like there's no need to lie. Like we're also very genuine, and we want to all accomplish this goal. That we're all very solution oriented, right? So again, it comes down to funding. It comes down to finding partners that are genuine and authentic. And it comes down to just being able to, again, to find people that are willing to push through any conflict to make sure that we're reaching our goal, right? So.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning of intentionality. Like if we're going to because I mean, a lot of times I think we had discussions towards the end about, and there was a quote from MLK that, something about a day of when philanthropy is not needed, right? And I believe, kind of the Nike and some of these bigger companies coming in, and that is technically philanthropy, and we're working towards on the ground level to be a point of like it's equitable, and everyone is involved in playing, and there is no need for these funds, right? So with that being said, I am curious, how do you see PeacePlayers' role expanding from the local level to the state? And this could be other than PeacePlayers. It could be Nike. It can be just like kind of our topic, going from local level to state to national, and then obviously global, right? PeacePlayers is a global brand.
Yeah, I think I was having a discussion with Wayne about this, and about how service versus action, right? Like being able to talk about, because we were having a discussion with wanting to focus on the individual and individual growth, but then how does that in a larger scale affect the community? And how can we not only impact an individual, but how can we make sure that, yes, we're addressing this individual, but we're actually creating action, or we're actually there's an activist or an activism aspect to what we're doing. Right. Because I feel like, in order to make change, like it's systematic. So for us, we're at a very ground level where we're addressing things directly. But again, it takes big names, it takes policymakers, it takes a lot of movement and a lot of like just push. So that's why, again, I go back to within PeacePlayers, like we celebrated our 20th anniversary, right, of being a global movement, being in South Africa, Northern Ireland, Middle East, Cyprus, like we're out there. And within the US, being in Brooklyn, Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, LA, looking to expand to another state as well, we're definitely, expanding within states. And then at a local level, it's just being consistent. So for us, our focus is just Watts and like the South LA area. For me, I think someone had asked, like, so what's the goal? The goal is to just be consistent and develop trust, and to be, make sure that we're authentic, and make sure that the community sees us as not an organization that is just here for photo ops or is just here for, just to meet a quota, or again, make sure that their funders are satisfied. Yes, of course, in the nonprofit space or in any organization, like, yes, you need funds, but also, we're rooted to our purpose. Like, the funds is the unfortunate capitalistic part of our society. And like, we have to work along with capitalism, but to a certain extent, not to an extent where, we're overly driven or overly like money hungry, or of like lose our purpose. So at a local level, again, intentionality on authenticity. As grants like a state level continue to expand and to continue to communicate and continue to remain connected. Within PeacePlayers specifically, we have at least 2 meetings a month where every staff from every site comes together and we exchange ideas, or we review what's going down in Chicago, what's going down in Baltimore. How are you guys doing this? How are you guys doing that? It's the collaborative piece. And then again, just in a larger scale, how do we break down systematic issues? How do we break down systematic racism? How do we talk about gender equity? How do we talk about, all of these cases that, and again, it gets overwhelming. Like for me, I'm very transparent in the sense that when I take a step back, like I'm an overthinker. I can continue to peel the layers. I'll peel the layers until I feel like I'm useless or like I'm not really doing anything, because like, again, in the large scale, we're just like a grain of salt. We're literally just a grain of salt. So how can I be empowered by my own impact, and how can I truly believe in what I'm doing, and that, hopefully, let's say I'm coaching Osvaldo, I'm coaching Mary. Hopefully whatever Mary does, maybe Mary, I impacted her to the point where now she's going to be the policymaker. Now she's like, I don't like this. Now she's going to go study. So it's always the hope that because we're moving so authentically, the kids will notice that. The kids understand that, and they'll be so positively influenced and so inspired, right? It's the key is inspiration. Like, can you inspire someone to cause change or create change? If you're already at a point where you feel maybe this is your role, like this is how you inspire, great. Now let's try to see how we can inspire others to go even more, right? Go beyond your impact. So I think that's, I know I kind of like ramble on it, but I guess like you said, it's very conversational. It's very conversational. I feel like you can just peel layers, and so I think whenever you start peeling layers or thinking like, am I really having an effect? You have to reflect and remain true on what's happening at a ground level locally, and kind of just give yourself roses still, because there's a lot of people like us. There's a lot of people with great intentions and good hearts out there, and it takes a village. That's why the basketball community is so amazing, especially here in LA. Like me getting this package, like me meeting Stephanie, me having Evan as a boss, all these other mentors that I've had, like, I'm so grateful. Like, this is how we've gotten here, right? And they've impacted me. They've inspired me to be who I am. So.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And with that, I share very similar feelings of like, I sometimes I'll go, full broad spectrum. And like before this, I had a podcast called the Better World Challenge, and we had like 5 different focus areas, from like poverty alleviation to like climate change and education. And I was just all over the place, and I never felt like I was doing enough. And especially when I came to LA, I felt like such a small number, but it also almost helped me like recognize, like, I want to be a very tasty grain of salt, right? Like I want my grain of salt to really like have some effect. I don't want it to be, I guess, a cheap grain of salt, or I don't even know where I'm going with it, other than like, I want to be very intentional with the salt that I bring. And I feel like that's what
legacy. It also has to do with like leaving a legacy.
Leaving a legacy. So what's the legacy you want to leave?
Right. Me?
Yeah.
I want to leave. I don't know, man. I literally every day I'm just like, so what's next for me? Or like, what's even like talking about Nike, I'm like, I don't see myself, or I can't see myself past PeacePlayers right now. I'm so like present in the space that I'm at, because I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be. Like that's how I 100%. Feel right now. And I think that's maybe why I can't so much see ahead. And like with Nike, I'm like, okay, well, like I told you, I'm like, I'm very ambitious. There's no ceiling. So once I feel comfortable, I'm like, okay, well, what's next? Like, and when? No rush, but I just like setting goals and I want to know what's next for me. So legacy wise, I literally just want to make sure that like, if people want to, I want people to know me for something positive. Like if it's my energy, if like you walk away only remembering me for my energy, cool. Maybe you'll remember one thing that I did and you'll continue to do it. Like, or like I think of my dad, right? My dad passed when I was younger. Like I want to have children because I want to like have his last name continue on. I kind of just think of like, even like minutely, just like a last name, like leaving that legacy. Like my brother, who's my dad's son, had a son. So now I know for sure that legacy is continuing on, or at least the Gutierrez name. But as for what legacy, I just want to inspire people to want to have a legacy or to leave a legacy. I want to inspire people to be passionate about something. Because one thing about me is when I meet someone who I feel doesn't have direction or doesn't have something that sparks them, I get worried. And then I feel like, let me help you. Let me kind of direct you. Because if you're going through life without passions, or if you're going through life just like a leaf blowing in the wind, which is cool. I also go with the flow. It's very it's important to go with the flow at times, but I also think it's important to understand your purpose. And when people don't know their purpose, I also want to be able to help guide them or help them figure it out. Because I think living life without a purpose is probably very, very, very stressful. I can't imagine it. I'm like, couldn't be me. I was like, couldn't be me,
couldn't
man.
be me either.
Couldn't be me.
Yeah, it's kind of that balance, that art of being able to be intentional, but also go with the flow and be present, kind of like you're talking about, because that's something that I struggled with, especially last year. And it's probably also, because of the pandemic and other anxieties maybe I didn't address. That's a whole nother episode, right? But I just wanted to be somewhere else so bad. I'm like, let's go. I can't wait till I'm this age and I'm making an impact doing this. Right. And so I've really had to work on I feel good about where I'm at too. Right. I'm also an ambitious person. Like I want to go here and here, but I also know now that we're getting to that age where I'm starting to miss certain eras, different college days, or, even last year and working at the Boys and Girls Club, there's some of the things okay, where I'm at right now, I know I won't be here forever. So I want to make the most of it. Right. I want to live that passion and purpose. And I'm curious, with you and working with, different athletes, how do you what's kind of your tactics in the way of finding motivations for players and making sure that they play and obviously live with purpose as well?
Yeah. Well, one, I think I mentioned earlier, I obviously deal with a lot of different youth or athletes from various ages, ranging from 5 years old to oldest, maybe 23 years old. So for me, again, it's whatever space I'm entering, prior to entering the space, I reflect on why am I here again? Who am I here for? Or, what team, where am I? What side am I hitting right now? What team is this for? And I'm also really good at compartmentalizing. So I have a lot of different storage files in my head. And whenever I pull up to, let's say, Boys and Girls Club, all right, I'm pulling up, and I talked to you about this earlier. I am going to finish that song that I'm listening to in my car because I need to make sure that I'm myself. I want to make sure that when I walk into a space, I'm ready. I'm full. So I'm ready to unload or give you what you need because I came here ready to go. So that's step one. Then step two is, again, because I'm able to compartmentalize. Once I'm in a space, then I'm able to kind of form that relationship with a kid or, with a young adult, whatever, a teenager, whatever. And I just care, Justin. I don't know why. One thing about me, I'm really good at memorizing athletes' names. I'm horrible at memorizing adults' names.
That's funny.
When it comes to kids, I'm yeah, I got you. But when it comes to adults, for whatever reason, I'm sorry, I only have a mental capacity to care about my kids, the participants.
About the future.
I only have capacity to service who I'm here to service. And that's why when I meet someone, I need to write it down, or I make sure that I save someone's number, I write their name, but I also write, where I met them or what organization, because that's just with adults. That's what I need to do. But with kids, you could tell me, and you could be okay, name a kid from here and tell me something about them. I can. And it's just because I'm that intentional when I enter space. I make sure that every kid knows that I saw them and that I made an effort to say hi, because I know how important it is. I know how the effect of literally simply fist bumping or saying, hey man, how are you? Great shoes, like complimenting, anything like that. It doesn't even have to be such a deep conversation. You don't have to have deep relationships with every kid. As long as you just see every kid and acknowledge every kid, there's power in that, right? And then we can fast forward, like, and I'll give you like a little anecdotal thing that happened last night. Last night I went to the Dodger game. I'm driving, I'm pulling out. I have friends in my car, and a parent, one of our PeacePlayers parents, texts me, and she's like, or she calls me. She's like, hey, are you up? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, what's going on? And she's telling me that Hillary, one of our PeacePlayers kids, who's actually going to the friendship games, and she's been with us since PeacePlayers been a thing in LA. She unfortunately fractured her arm last night, and she was playing basketball with her brother outside their house. And whatever happened, and she fractured her arm. So here's her mom asking if she can speak to me or if Hillary can talk to me, because Hillary's basically like hysterically crying, having a panic attack because she's stressed out about her arm, doesn't know how that's going to affect her. But here's her mom calling me. Like, her mom feels like I can ease her daughter's pain, or I can, like, my words will help, like, ease her daughter, like whatever emotional anxiety she's feeling. Like, that was big for me. And the fact that it was like almost 11 o'clock at night. So I'll be available for whatever is needed if I'm available. So I answered the call. I was like, sorry, y'all. I was like, sorry, I'm gonna put this on speakerphone. I have to attend to this. I'm driving, dropping everyone off, but I'm having this conversation with Hillary over speakerphone in my car, telling her, like, it's okay. Nothing, everything happens for a reason. Your participation in friendship games is not going to be affected. If anything, you just can't play basketball. But PeacePlayers isn't only about basketball. PeacePlayers is about leadership development. It's about making friends. It's about, learning and absorbing your surroundings. So I had to really talk her down. So for me, again, that was just like an example. Like I had to tell her, like, I love you, Hillary. It's going to be okay. She's like, I love you. I love you too, coach. Thank you. And I was like, yeah, you're welcome. Like, call me. I was like, call me, text me, whatever you need. And I actually have to, that reminds me, I need to call her mom back, because she FaceTimed me like an hour ago, and I totally, so then there's options like that. I do, of course, because I have a lot going on. Sometimes it does pass me, but then again, I remember. So that's the curse. The beauty is that I'm accessible to a variety of people, and I'm so intentional that I will listen to them and I will provide whatever advice is needed. The negative is that because there's so much people, or not so much people, I'm ready for more. I'm like, come on, I want more. I'm not limiting myself, but I am saying I'm very mindful as well of, spreading yourself too thin and not being able to fully give 100% to everyone that you interact with. And that's something that I'm learning, or I'm trying to build up on, because I want to be able to continue to multitask, or continue to have 20 kids in A, 20 kids in B, 20 kids in C, 100 in D, and be able to still, be 100% in every area or facet of my life. So that's my challenge, or that's what I'm working on.
That's a beautiful story. And I'm going through a similar thing right now, maybe not with as many kids, but just in general, I'm learning that if you give energy to one person, that means, technically less energy for another person during that day and time. Of course, there's another day. And then, of course, you have your work and your responsibilities. So it is that intentionality of prioritization. But I do, going back to what you were talking about, that's something I've tried to adapt to, is giving daps to every single person. And if I do have time, before practice, just making sure I try and ask them something or comment something that's outside of basketball and outside of the realm, that just kind of acknowledges their humanity. And I think that's a big shift that I see happening, with coaches and just hopefully in general. I know we've had a little bit of a discussion about differing philosophies from older coaches that we've both probably worked with. I'm curious, as we're both not, young, new coaches, what's something that you want to shift, from older generation of coaches to our generation?
Yeah, well, I'm a strength-based coach. And I'm also just very, I'm just positive. There's no room for negativity in my coaching space. So again, with that said, Hold on. Ask the question again. I was about to say something super great. I was about to drop gems on you, Justin. Oh, wait, it came back to me. Don't worry. It came back. I don't want to say I strongly dislike, but I don't like watching it when I see a coach being traditional, like quote unquote traditional. So
let's define it.
Let's define it. So for me, traditional coaching is, I've been coaching for 20 years. This is my philosophy. This is my principle. This is what I've been doing. I'm not straying away from what I've done for 20 years. Okay, great. Do your thing. And within that is probably, this is my expectations for players. If that my players don't meet this expectation, peace out. There's a lot of people that I can find, or there's people that will work for me or do whatever it takes to get up here. And it doesn't need to be you, right? So it's a lack of, I can't even. I'm like, I can't even. So that's like an example, right? And then for me, like being strength based. If I've been coaching since I was 18, so that's 7 years. So I'm like, okay, I've been coaching for 7 years, but every year I've coached differently. Every year I coach based on my group. Every year I coach based on the different personalities I have, the relationships I have with them, what they need from me. It's never, Nat, what's your coaching philosophy? I don't know, man. My coaching philosophy is I'm a chameleon. I shift and bend according to what I have and what they need from me. So I'm not someone who's stubborn. Like for me, traditionality is being stubborn. Like for me, that's why I say strength-based. If I have a team of 10 and Justin, you're only good at defense. Okay, Justin, I'm not gonna make you feel like you're not up to par with my team. I'm going to make you and put you in positions for you to succeed. If you're a defensive stopper, I'm going to sub you in when I need you for defense, and I'll be subbing you out for offense. It's okay. And I'll have that conversation prior. I'll have that conversation with you prior, and I'll make sure that you're aware of it. And if you tell me, coach, I want to be more than a defensive stopper, then I'll say, okay, but you need to work on it. And then I'll work on it with you. I'll give you some time, but this is where you're at now. So for me, my type of, again, like strength-based coaching, I'm very positive in the sense and transparent in the sense that I'll have one-on-one meetings prior to the season. We'll have the season, probably still be chatting with individuals throughout because mindsets and feelings change. And then we'll always have like another exit conversation as to feedback. How did you feel? Do you want to continue to, what do you need from me? Right. So for me, it's always checking in, always making sure that we have established kind of like a sense of transparency and a sense of trust. So I coach with building confidence. I coach with establishing trust. And for me, again, it's just making sure that I'm uplifting my players versus tearing them down. And that, again, is based on seeing them as for who they are and not as just someone or a puzzle piece in your own goals. So whenever I see a coach who's just very driven to, win a ring or like, I'm not hating on competitive people. I'm like, you're a different type of breed. Like, that's cool. Like you're a different type of breed. And there's kids like the D1 kids, the AAU circuit, like there's those kids that are perfect for that type of setting and that can push through. But I always think I'm sure like I would be curious, like to have a conversation with Gino from UConn. I'd be curious to have a conversation with Don Staley. I'd be curious to have like conversations with these big coaches who deal with such a competitive field. And I'd wonder, like, are you traditional? Like, I would love to be a fly on the wall in the locker room just to see how the simple interactions are between the head coach and player, because it's almost like, and that's another like dilemma for me. It's like the difference between a head coach and an assistant coach. You want a head coach to be whatever. And when you're hiring your assistants, you want them to supplement you, right? You don't want them to be exactly like who you are. You want them to be what you lack, because then you're a whole, right? But that's why, like, if I can't coach for a traditional, and it's weird, like I can't be an assistant. Like, I don't think I could be an assistant for a traditional coach because yes, I know you need me because you don't know how to like attend to these kids or how to get them to be their best versions of themselves. But also I can't be in this space because it's very toxic for me. Like I can't be in traditional coaching settings. It's extremely toxic for me. And I'm like, it takes a lot to contain myself. Like I want to just be like, stop, like, give me the keys, get out of the car. I drive. Get out of the car. I got it. So that's just kind of, again, another tangent as to like traditional coaching versus how I feel in this generation we need to coach. just being so mindful of mental health and how that's such a big key. And traditional coaches don't want to attend to mental health. It's just so much, like dealing with X's and O's, dealing with plays, dealing with people's their kids' grades. Like there's just so much that coaches are like, no, I don't have time to ask my players what's going on up here. But like that's just so important. So again, like for me, it's like if I don't have your mental right, or if you're not checked in and locked in with me, then we can't move forward in coaching. I can't coach you. I can't tell you to run or shoot the ball if I don't understand what you're feeling, or if you don't understand that I'm here for you. So it's kind of just like a very completely more holistic approach to coaching, I would say, versus, a competitive, like, let's meet this end goal and then peace out. Thank you for your athleticism,
Yeah, it's kind of like recognizing the human first, the athlete second. And I think the big thing I hear in general is just listening, like not even all the time verbal listening, but also listening to your players and how they play, right? That's a basic understanding of, is this person a defensive stopper or are they a 3-point specialist? And not being like, I'm coming into this season being like, we're going to be a pick and roll team and, we're going to play 2-3 defense no matter what, right? It's kind of like listening, to what the strengths are. And so I actually, I haven't got an opportunity to create that yet, at least here in LA. I've done a few like middle school teams and I'm still learning so much as a coach, as I'm sure, all coaches are. And it would be really interesting to go and listen to like, Corey Close, UCLA basketball, Gino, like it would be dope to go to one of those practices. But with our time coming up to an end, I want to, talk a little bit more about the mental health aspect of players, because I think that is a big shift that I see, now that I'm kind of just entering this space again. I kind of took a break during college, but it's great to be back in the athletic space. And with college athletics, like it just seems like so many people are just, there's so much toxic, masculinity, but just toxic behavior in sports in general, because I know it happens with female sports as well. So I'd like to save that last space for the mental health.
Yeah, mental health is just something that I can like speak on for hours. I feel like, I was, even in the beginning of this session, I was like, yeah, I need therapy. I was like, yeah, exactly. I think almost everyone needs therapy. I think almost everyone experiences their own individual traumas, and certain people are better at recognizing them and acknowledging them and, solving them or taking steps towards, becoming a better version of themselves. And I feel, because I'm so aware of how in control I am of my feelings, but also how I can have such a lack of control of my feelings, like my head, my thoughts. Like if I can have that with being 25, with having a college education, with having already gone through high school, with having, gone through like the worst, like your teen phase, like I always step back and be like, oh my God, imagine the kids we're servicing. Like they're right in the midst of bullying. They're right in the midst of, this technological era where they have so much in their hands. Like how, like the immediate gratification aspect affects their mental health a lot. Like if even in a coaching setting, even us, like, and then also the fact that we have Instagram and TikTok and all these, like we all, human nature, it's human nature to compare yourself. It's human nature to not observe someone and think like, I'm not where they are, I should be where they are. Why are they like, and then that leads to negative feelings and everything. And then we spiral. So this is just such a sensitive era to live in. And I'm literally every day, not every day, but maybe every other day, I'm like, thank God I'm not a kid right now. Because I feel like going through a pandemic, losing some social skills, how like a big thing for me coming out of the pandemic or leaving the virtual space is, how can I help our kids relearn how to socialize? How can I provide our kids tools and like the tools to have a conversation, the tools to make a friend, the tools to acknowledge that they feel anxiety or whatever they're feeling is, it's okay to feel it. Like they need to know, or I just want people to be mindful of the anxiety. And because I'm also a very anxious person, I can see it, as adults, like we're trained to to view certain, alerts, like whether someone's like tapping their foot a lot, or whether someone's biting their nails, or whether like their body language, their facial expression. For me, it's up to coaches and trainers and people and like mentors, people in these positions. It's up to us to be very aware of certain signs of mental health so that we can handle our own, right? That's the whole inside out transformation. If I don't have a grip on myself, how can I have someone else have a grip on themselves? Right. So again, I just think it's extremely important to have those conversations with kids and also share. Like, I'm not afraid of telling our kids, like, yeah, I was very anxious this morning. Yeah, my dog died. Like, my dog died and I feel this type of way. Like, it's important for me to be so transparent and just so open so that kids see and adults see that it's okay to just voice your thoughts, because we forget. Like, we're all socialized to, men even more, like, you're socialized not to cry. You're socialized not to be in tune with your feelings. And it's even difficult for me, like when I meet someone like you, Justin, like someone who's just very intuitive and like a critical thinker and mindful and like, in tune with himself. Like, I'm always like, oh, cool. Like, your mom did a good job, or your dad. I don't know. Like, whenever I see like men that are like on it and mindful and whatever, I'm just like, wow, like I'm surprised. Like I'm genuinely surprised because of how tough it is for like men to grow up in this society and want to handle their mental health. So of course, like, yes, as a female, like I know that we have this issues, and females have so many confidence issues and, insecurities, but there's the same issues with men. So again, it's just being able to see people as people. And again, circling back, like everything that I do brings me back to our Peace Player core values. Right. So it's just, again, mindfulness. Boom.
Mindfulness, intentionality. That's a perfect way to end it. I appreciate your time so much today, Natalie. Before we let you go, any last words of advice for coaches, and where can coaches, or other, youth leaders reach out to you just to connect with you?
Dope. Yeah, no. Well, obviously, everyone, hello, Coach Nat. Follow me on Instagram at Coach G Nat. But you can always, I was like, okay, I'm not going to give my number out here because
it's not a good idea.
But yeah, my Instagram, usually I post all of that's like almost like my profile or my portfolio, right? Everything that I do coaching wise, like I put that out there. Unfortunately, I'm not active on Facebook. I do have a TikTok, but that's more of like I don't know. I feel like I want to tap into that space with coaching, but I'm also in my own head where I'm like, I don't know if I'm like that type of person who can like vlog or give you tips and be like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I'm more of the person like, hey, you have a problem, like message me individually and I will definitely make time. I'll at least have one conversation with you. But yeah, follow me on Instagram. I work for PeacePlayers, so look up PeacePlayers on the website. I work at LA Valley Community College. I'm the coach for the women's basketball team. I coach club. I work for the LA Clippers as well. So I kind of just like look for me in a gym near you, basically. Look for me in a gym near you.
All right.
Me in a gym near you.
I love it. Thanks, Coach Nat.
All right. Of course, Justin. Thank you for the platform and the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.